Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard emerges with people from all walks of life who, through their own unique angle, succeed and flourish. Enjoy the ride and welcome to Unique Ways, an audio podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. Got a really great guest on today. He's a graphic designer, often associated with the posters and album covers he's done for bands from the Pacific Northwest, such as Mudhoney, Monomen, Soundgarden, and the Sonics. Please join me in welcoming Art Chantry. Welcome.
Hello. How are you?
Good. Are you ready for 20 questions?
Sure. We may not make it through all 20 because I tend to talk a lot, but go ahead.
Okay, question one. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
Okay, I'm a graphic designer. That's very much differentiated from an artist. I am a guy who is extremely influent in the visual language of our shared culture. And I use this language, be it a color, be it a straight line versus a squiggly line, or a circle versus a square. All those things mean something in our culture. We all know what they mean, but we don't know why that. It's just the way it is. For instance, a circle is round. A round circle is female, and a square box is male. Why? I don't know. It's just an assumption we all made. It's because it's our language that we've the graphic design language actually existed before the spoken word, I think. I mean, they were communicating through squiggles before they could make words. I don't know. I was still a baby in those days, but um anyway, I take this language and I present ideas in our culture. Because we're a capitalist culture, the main market, or the main person I do this for, is not myself, but for clients. And what I try to do is use this language to manipulate the viewer into buying this product, going to this event, voting for this candidate. So what I do is I fuck around with people's minds. That's my job. Um, it's a very interesting job. Let's just say I'm never bored.
Great, I love it. Just a note for the
Oh,
audience.
by the way, I've got a cat in the room that's making a lot of noise. I need to get her out. Can we take a little quick break here?
Sure.
It's okay, just a sec. Steve, come in. Come on. You want to be in here. Ugh, smash. Okay, there you go. There you go. Good kid. So there, that was exciting, wasn't it?
Great.
Did you get any good sound effects out of that?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, good. I was tripping over boxes and stuff.
Okay, and just a note for the audience, if you guys are interested in the most recent high-profile episode, check out the episode with Yves Behar. That was a really great one. So question two, what's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
Well, I think the key piece of knowledge is basically what I was saying before, that I view this as language and not decoration. Most graphic designers just look at graphic designers as making things look nice. I use nice, but I also use ugly. Most graphic designers don't think ugly is good. Yeah, but it really speaks to the right audience. I mean, for instance, punk rock tried to scare away straight people. They didn't want those people to come to their little meetings, these shows they were putting on. And so any place they got together. Back in the early days, punks were all destitute. I mean, they couldn't afford things like telephones. I mean, the only way they could communicate was either through postcards, which cost money, or sending letters, or telephone pole street posters. That was it. That's the only way they could talk. They couldn't afford telephones. So they didn't, when they put up a concert, they didn't want some hippie turd coming to their show who would be the total antithesis of what they were about. They wanted to scare them away. So they put a picture of a dead baby on their poster and everybody would get mad and they'd leave them alone. Well, they might send the cops. But anyway, so that is one of the key components. I basically use, like a lot of the punk rockers. What was Johnny Rotten's line in Anarchy?
I'm not sure.
You use the best, we'll use the rest. Yeah, I use the rest in my design work. I used to be a garbage man at one point.
It's interesting.
No,
Yeah.
it's true. I'm still using stuff I found in the garbage 50 years later.
Hmm. Great. Should we move to number three?
Hello?
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Number three then. Why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
I do this because I find it's the way I can deal with the world around me. I it's a way for me to be who I am and communicate broadly with vast numbers of people. Oftentimes, they don't know I'm communicating with them, but I am.
Hmm.
I can actually make my ideas known through my artwork that gets spread throughout the entire culture. And it's the only way I can scream.
Hmm. Nice.
You scream.
Um, I don't know. Yeah,
Oh,
maybe.
that's right. You're Canadian. I'm sorry. You don't scream up there. Down here, we end up having elections where we end up screaming a lot.
Yeah. Okay, question four. Some people struggle with this one, but the question is, what does your future look like?
Well, graphic design has changed so much since I started. I think the world that I discovered and was kind of forced to operate in was freelance in Seattle, where I grew up in the Northwest. Um, there People didn't get jobs doing graphic design. It's just if there were five jobs in all of Seattle of being wait a sec, something just popped up on my screen here. I don't even know what they're saying. Anyway, in Seattle, if there were five actual jobs doing graphic design, they were all taken years ago. Basically, everybody had to hard scramble for to do what they do, and it was the only way for me to make a living. Um, I actually tried to study graphic design in college, but it really wasn't offered.
Hmm.
I took one graphic design class that I already knew more than the teacher did. So, I mean, it was basically just I'm self-taught. I worked my way through everything. I've had to do entirely by myself. Nobody's ever really helped me all that much.
Hmm.
And I've had to do pitch battle through all this, the capitalist moves.
Hmm.
So basically, I do what I do because it's how I survive.
Hmm. Great. Okay. So question five we say is unique to this show. The question is, let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into what you do?
Well, it's a graphic design with the internet's all that's changed. Again, this goes back to the previous question. The freelance world is essentially gone as a career option. The only way you get to do graphic design anymore is as an in-house wage slave, salaried job. Um, that means you're going to get paid garbage as a beginner. There is no corporate ladder for you to climb up. You're always going to be a wage slave at a lousy wage now, and you're going to be doing, artificial intelligence essentially, just making decorative things. You're going to make things look pretty for your corporate masters out there. And that is the world as it exists in graphic design right now. I existed outside of that world. I tried working with corporations, but I quickly realized that they have entire divisions of lawyers and bookkeepers whose job it is to not pay their bills. And I got screwed every single time I ever worked with a real big outfit. I mean, it was a real education. I ended up working for the kind of people I work for, musicians and actors and bookstores and just God knows small fry businesses, because I learned that the only credit line those small businesses have is their honesty. Because if they screw you, word gets around and nobody will work with them and they go out of business.
Mm.
That's not true in major corporations. They have a line of the door of suckers waiting to be taken advantage of. So it's like it's their modus operandi since the beginning of time. So
Mm.
I basically see like graphic design, which I think might have been what your last question was getting at. What's the current status of it? I think it's in a real dangerous position as kind of evaporating. It's going to become a button you push on your computer screen and anybody can do it. Um, Graphic design, like I do, is already fading fast. I kind of figured when I saw my first graphic computer program. This is way back in the early 80s. There was somebody showed me a paint box system. I mean, just the computers alone filled the room. It was a wall of computers, like old mainframe stuff. And you had this little screen in the side of one. And the guy who's operating says, "Well, tell me what to do." And I said, "Well, let's see. Get a picture of Seattle. Okay, now have Godzilla stomping through it, smashing it." And so within 5 minutes, he actually created this image. And I realized, oh, this is going to put me out of business. I can see this is going to change everything, you know. Um, and I've been to realize the only way I could survive in doing what I do is to remain in the realm of ideas, because computers don't have idea buttons yet. And I kind of figured the way it would all work out is that within 10, 15 years, there'd be a decimation of graphic design, real creative graphic design out there. Basically, there'd be about 10% of the graphic design world I knew and was operating in left. I was wrong, of course. It was more like 5%. Basically, out there, it's like, why on earth would you hire me? You'd have to pay me. And, at this point, I'm not going to work cheap. Why would they pay me when they can go out to the college that just churned out a mess of little graphic designers who know how to work the latest software, get them for virtually minimum wage, and even buy them an entire computer system, put them to work, and get stuff that's good enough. I mean, it's just inside of this society, there's just no point in hiring a real graphic designer. You know, most people don't even understand what graphic design is anyway. So somebody can just make something look nice. That's what they're looking for.
Mm.
I come and present ideas. So I ended up surviving in what I do, but it turned out to be a very, very small little bracket I survive in. It's amazing how many really famous graphic designers you know. You have to excuse my voice. How many really famous graphic designers you know that kind of went into a dead panic when their workload evaporated because they never experienced unemployment. They just like, oh dear, all of a sudden they're worried about having to live on the streets. They just were not prepared for no work. And that's happened to some really famous names I know. Really famous names. They
Mm.
just, nobody expected it to just kind of go poof. Anyway, what's your next question?
I'm trying to figure out which question we're on. Are we on six here?
Now, I tend to wander a lot, so I think your list might become inoperative in a bit. So why don't you just pick one?
Okay, well, six is if you had to start from the beginning, what advice would you give your former younger self?
Oh, carry a gun. You're going to need it. It's the only way you can get things done out there. Next question.
What's a day in your life like?
Well, actually, now that I'm old, well, I'm 70 years old now, so I just don't care. My days are pretty slow. I basically make enough money to live, to survive. The house is paid for, so I don't have to worry about losing that for a couple of months
Mm.
until somebody shows up with a gun. And let's see, I basically work on freelance. I'm on Facebook a lot where I kind of, I guess, blog. I basically get on Facebook. It's an exercise I started about 10 years ago to just teach myself how to write in an interesting way. What I do is I look around my studio. My studio is like a junk shop. It's just like floor to ceiling stuff, books, records, objects, things I found, things I was given. Anyway, it's a madhouse. And I pick something and I put it down and I look at it and I ask myself, well, why is this interesting to me? Why do I keep this around? And then I write an essay.
Mm,
And that kind of developed into a surprisingly large following. Thousands of people watch me every day just to see what I write about. Lately, I've been kind of throwing my old portfolio over the years onto the screen just because I personally find that interesting to look where I've been.
mm,
And I talk about this stuff, and I've learned to write well enough that people will read it and follow me. So that's how I spend a lot of time. Once in a while, I get a job. Once in a while, people will hire me because I'm Art Chantry, and my name is big enough in certain circles, weird little pockets here and there, that they want the indie cred or something
mm,
of my name attached to their product. So they might hire me to design a snowboard or something like that. And
mm,
I will design something, but art directors these days are all grossly undertrained and they're all computer geeks. So what they end up doing is taking my artwork and totally tearing apart and redesigning it, and sometimes replacing it. And then they still put my name on it because that's what they willing to pay me for. And they pay me well sometimes, you know?
mm,
So there may be a piece out there that's got my name, the Art Chantry snowboard, and it's really not my work at all. It's some junior art director in some department somewhere on a wage slave gig. Um, See, that's what's kind of happened in graphic design. Authorship almost means nothing out there anymore.
mm,
The only thing that keeps my name active is the fact that I'm such an asshole.
mm. Okay.
People hire me not because they want graphic design. Hire me because they want the name Art Chantry associated with their product. And
Mm.
that's just reality.
Okay. Number 8 is around lifelong learning. It's a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
Oh, I don't stay up to date. I kind of lead the charge. I basically fill my head with as much information about as many things that I'm interested in. I am a garbage head. I used to be a garbage man. I'm still using stuff I found in the trash. I'm a book collector. I'm an avid reader. I constantly research interesting things or things that interest me anyway. And I try to just learn as much as I can. That's one of the assets I can bring to a client is that they come in the door with their product. I will research the heck out of it. I will research their market. I will find out all kinds of angles, and my work will actually comment directly on what they're doing.
Mm.
That is part of what graphic design is supposed to be doing. Although most people just make something look pretty these days.
Nice.
What do you do for a living? Are you a graphic designer?
Right now I'm running the podcast, and it's pretty
I mean,
much
actually, this is your living is doing this.
this is my primary activity.
Wow. Okay. See what I mean? You know, a few years ago, this was not an option, dude. It was just not there. And here
Mhm,
you are surviving, thinking this is real.
mhm,
I wonder what's going to be like in another 5, 10 years. I'm
mhm.
still waiting for the implants in your brain, so you don't even need these little machines.
Nice. Uh,
Well, that's what's going to happen. You don't think so? People are already doing that.
mhm,
I mean, experimental.
mhm.
Hmm.
So you answered this kind of, but the question is around tools. Can you talk about your use of digital and analog tools?
Well, I still have an analog copier, and that's because up here in the Northwest, we have Boeing, the aircraft companies, and they have a lot of copying reproduction systems over there that is analog. And the reason for that is because they sometimes need to make very, very, very long copies of things. They might be electrical systems. They might imagine a, about an 1117 size copier flatbed that can make a copy 300 feet long.
Hmm.
Now, analog copiers can do that if you set it up that way. So basically, they still use a lot of analog over at Boeing for a lot of their blue line and things like that.
Hmm.
Although that's a different printing process. There's copies. And as a result, there's a lot of parts available in wrecking yards.
Mm,
And so basically, we can keep analog copiers going in the Northwest simply because parts are available. There are still one or two people who will repair analog copiers,
mm,
and it's all very reasonably priced because they're using used parts, you
mm,
know. Um, Once the parts have gotten used up, that's that. Into the garbage it's going to go. So
mm,
then I'll have to switch over to a more digital quality, but I will still figure out ways to make it look like crap.
mm. Mm. Okay. Halfway number 10. Can you talk about work life or life work balance?
Well, when you do this, there is no balance. You're totally absorbed by it. It becomes kind of a lifestyle choice. You know, you may hang out with other designers, but most other designers I've found really aren't that trustworthy because they're always kind of on the make and trying to hustle a buck.
Mm,
Although some of them have been some lifelong close friends, but it's basically kind of isolating. You end up having to spend so much time trying to sell yourself to get work to survive that your social circle ends up becoming clients.
mm,
And I've seen that aspect of this work kind of destroy a lot of people because it turns them into salesmen. They're no longer designers, they're salesmen. What happens is eventually they start hiring little wage slave guys right out of school, giving them a desk in their studio and putting them to work while they're out selling and hanging out and partying with the clients and bringing the work back in and having their staff do it and putting their name on it. I mean, you know, that's the old studio system of time immemorial. All the great master painters of old had studios, you know. A lot of them were like training grounds. They were essentially the colleges for these people.
mm,
So, I mean, that is a system. Well, I mean, Warhol's factory is essentially that structure. The idea of the lone artist working in the gable, creating his life's work and his feelings and his passion. You know, that doesn't really exist in graphic design unless you're completely bonkers like me.
mm, mm. Awesome. So 11, if you weren't doing what you do now, what might you be doing?
I would love to have been a person who was involved in some kind of mechanical activity like plumbing or carpentry or even auto repair. I mean, I find that incredibly satisfying work to do as around the house. However, I'm not good at it. I tend to break more than I fix. I don't know, that's because of the style of work I do, or maybe it's just I am a klutz, but I find it frustrating to do because I can't do it with any quality. Um, but yeah, that is what I'm attracted to. I
Mm,
spend a lot of time looking at old broken machinery. I just think it's fascinating to just look at.
mm. What would you not like to do with your career?
Anything that means sucking up to the rich,
Mm,
I can't do that anymore.
mm.
Eat the rich.
Do you have a favorite word, quote, or sentence?
A favorite word quote? Well, aside from carry a gun and eat the rich, modernism is just another retro style. Yeah, try that one on. I always like that one.
How about a least favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Grow.
Okay, and you're choosing one word to describe yourself. What word do you choose?
Garbage head.
What keeps you up at night?
Keeps me up at night. Nightmares.
Okay, final stretch. What's a dream you're chasing?
Have my work survive. The idea of my work still being interesting to a viewer 100 years from now, when the whole function of my poster or whatever is lost, clients are no longer in business, the artists maybe on it are all dead, gone, and forgotten, and yet there's this real interesting image object, this poster, this piece of paper with this ink smeared all over it, and it's got this name at the bottom. It says designed by Art Chantry. Then it's my art.
Mm.
All the other function that I use is the part of the process to create it is gone. And that's when it becomes mine again. And that's the level I always design for. All the work I produce with that objective in mind. The clients never know about that part. There's always, when I do a piece, there's always a lot in there that's just for me. The clients never figure it out, because they're not living in my world, you know?
Mm.
So, yeah, that's something I always shoot for in my work,
And
to
what?
try to make it survive into the future, to be of interest 100, 200 years from now, if the piece even makes it that far.
Mm. What inspires you?
Our shared popular culture, particularly subcultures, utterly fascinating. I've spent most of my adult life following subcultural languages. Every one of them develops their own vocabulary, their own vernacular, their own meanings, their own dictionaries. And most of it's visual. And you can go back and study that language and figure out, what did beatnik graphics look like, Um, it's like most people follow subcultures, like they follow punk, or they follow hippies, or they follow young Republicans, or they follow Play Pony, or just whatever the pop thing of the moment is. People become very well versed in that vernacular. The more mainstream it is, the less interesting it is to me. I spend my time following things like, well, one summer I spent the entire summer driving around the state following the demolition derby circuit. Um, it was fascinating. It was an actual subculture where people actually had heroes, and and they would follow their fans that would follow their favorite drivers, watch them smash their cars into each other and fly through the air and cheer them on, and drink beer with them afterwards, help them haul the car home, and then you go to the next one at the next state fair or something like that, and those people were that one too, and they were cheering on the same guy. Before you knew it, you began to realize that most of the people in the audience who weren't there for the sheer spectacle were there cheering on their heroes, and they were part of a group of people that basically interacted together all the time, just like you would with punk rockers, or heavy metal kids. I mean, there's just all these weird little pockets. One summer I followed the drum and bugle corps subculture. You know, it was fascinating. It was just another time was just, oh, I can't. You see, I really am interested in this stuff, and they actually have their own visual language forms as well as their own verbal language forms. That their entire lives are built around demolition derbies. It's hilarious and fascinating and a little frightening at the same time. So
Okay.
yeah, that's it. I never stop learning. The information is so vast out there. The human mind is such an oozing mess. But I guess it tastes good. I just read a book about cannibalism. Anyway,
Advice, any advice you'd like to share?
I'll carry a gun because sooner or later, one of those clients, you're going to need it. You want to get paid, scare them. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, there is last number 20. How can our listeners keep tabs on you, and what's our call to action?
Well, like I said earlier, I kind of blog on Facebook, if such a thing is even possible. I mean, that's the old fogey software, and
Mm.
that's maybe the only. I've just never mastered the computer. I just don't. It bores the shit out of me. It's kind of like I don't like gambling either. I don't like playing with little things like this,
Mm.
and um, so I just have never learned the languages of this object in front of me. The only one I've really mastered with any efficiency is Facebook.
Mm.
And as tired and old fogey and boring as that is, that's where I operate. I also, I still use emails a lot to communicate. I'm not on any of those Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, all those little things that are basically nonverbal communication. Um, Even though I am a nonverbal communicator by trade, I wouldn't want to rely on a single sentence to to explain myself at all times. Basically, our pop culture is reducing down to single sentences or single words rather than paragraphs or stories. I'm interested in the stories. So
Nice.
I stick with systems that are storytelling stories and not snap commentary. Although I can be an asshole online too, you know.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
well,
go
yeah.
ahead.
No, I just wanted to thank you. I'm based in Vancouver here. So geographically, we're not that far apart.
Yeah, it's like I haven't been to Canada in years. I don't know why, because I really like Canada.
Yeah.
You know, I've gone up there just, you know, for relaxation, but I've also gone up there to do lectures at schools that probably have closed down now. So yeah, and I used to spend when I was really young, you know, Washington State was drinking age of 21 and Canada had drinking age of 18. So when I was going to school up at Western Washington University back when it was a state college, we used to make these periodic runs over the border to become ugly Americans and hang out near bars in Vancouver. Saw a lot of strippers. Um, Saw some real interesting bands too, but that was a long time ago. I don't think you were born yet.
Quite possible. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah. Really great hearing this. Thank you.
Okay. Merry Christmas.
If you liked today's podcast, I encourage you to have a listen to other episodes. You can easily find them at uniqueways.ca or wherever you find podcasts. You can also find us on social media. And thank you. It's you that makes these great, and it's you who these are for. Stay tuned for more unique ways.